got a couple
Or
of
you
tails
need
there.
to
These are maps from the 1930s.
My goodness.
How'd you get in town? How'd you get into town?
Hey,
I helped her.
I helped her. We snuck her in the trunk. Let me get this together. I've got more chairs. Was kind of a look back at Gosport, just some good memories and laughs and maybe some tears, we don't know. But we just thought we would get the people with the biggest mouths, I mean the people that knew most about Gosport.
You're not up there.
And we put them on a panel. Sherman Smith had to back out, he's in our last panel. So Joellen Smith has decided we're just gonna keep the names. She's gonna take his place, so that's good. Dad and Michael, Michael wrote Thank God I'm from Gosport, like 77, I think. Anyway, he made these copies and made Dad autograph them. Because he was a singer, and you guys get the autograph copies. So they're here, you're welcome to take them, or if you want me to pass them out, I'll be glad to. Teresa Thompson is sitting right here. She is helping us a lot in the museum, and she's going to take the video tonight, so we'll have this on video. So we can have it for years to come and enjoy. And
Can I have a makeup artist?
no, we have no makeup artists. And Kim decided.
edit. I'll blur it.
Decided she would be our MC for the night, so she's going to ask the questions and all of that. So we'll see how it goes, but we'll get started in about 6. Okay. Display on the inventors that have to do with Gosport, and it's really, really interesting. Take time to look at it. Ray Simpson, I don't know if you know him, part of the Marley family, but he has invented and has patents on things you would never believe. It's amazing. Just an incredible man and gifted. The what's that rifle? I don't know I can't think what it's called. Eugene Stoner was from Gosport. He invented it. And it's over here as well.
I think it's an
There's a
M50.
lot of
Yeah.
distinctions. And then it's the 80th anniversary of Gosport Manufacturing, and so we did a display on Gosport Manufacturing and some of the employees of the past and on my grandfather and dad, so that was kind of a fun one to work on
Did
as
my
well.
name get on there?
You're probably on there.
Oh, that boy.
I got to see you with hair, Joe.
Which one though? Which hair?
Yes, yes, yes.
I think so. It looks real.
And let's see, we're getting close to it. We have a lot of
That's not nice.
deeds and affidavits and things like that
It's
that came
not
in.
very
One of them
welcoming.
has the abstract from the time that Ephraim Goss started in Gosport, and it comes all the way through, and it ends up with Dad, his property that Dad owns back behind the house, and his will is in that. So I thought that was really interesting to see his will too.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. We're just talking before we get started. Come on in.
Hey, how are you, dear? How are you doing? Good.
Now that I'm
With
sorry.
our grants and all of the things that we get when you sign the book, and it shows how many people have been coming in and out of the museum. So if you'll do that. The other thing I was going to tell you about that, we talked about the inventors and Gosport Manufacturing. On this table up here where the fortnightly stuff is, there's a gentleman that has written the complete history of Lake Hollybrook. And the books are phenomenal. You can buy them online, but he came and he signed them and he gave us a copy at the museum, and they're just so interesting. If you have any interest in Lake Hollybrook or want to know when it was in its prime, it's really, really a great book to look at. There's 2 of them up there. And then Gosport's on the TC Still Trail. I don't know if you know, TC Still was born in Gosport.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that.
we're on the historic trail. So there's a group that will be coming in here in October with that trail, and they're going to be painting the town. So there's artists from all over the country that will be coming in and doing, wonderful painting in October. So that's something.
Days down at the park. I don't know what day it is, tomorrow or Sunday.
I think today,
Is it today?
yeah.
One of the heirs,
Yeah.
the founder,
Oh.
is going to be and speak about his.
He was
real
actually
reason.
born out in the country from us and not in
Right.
town.
Well,
Yeah,
okay, I know.
he would have gone to
sorry.
Gosport school if he'd been.
welcome everyone too. I really appreciate it. Alyssa wanted me to come up with 5 questions, and I came up with a few more so that we might have a little variety here, and we wouldn't be so repetitive about our stories, because some of the things that we like are going to be very similar, and then there will be some interesting questions and answers that we'll get that will be unique also. So we're going to start with our great panel here. I'm going to start with Martha. Martha, what was your favorite street in Gosport growing up, and why?
My favorite one,
Street.
street,
Uh-huh.
Main Street.
Tell us why.
It's because there's always a lot of activity going up and down Main Street. You would always go to Main Street, if you were gonna sled to go down Ramona Hill, it was close to the school. And a lot of activity on Main Street, always a lot of activity.
Jim, give us some of the characters you think of when you think of Main Street.
Jim?
Could you identify the panel?
Yes, go ahead.
And maybe have them speak up as loud as they can.
Speak up, and where do you want me to go?
Identify them. What are their names?
Oh, okay. Martha Douglas,
Thank-
Jim Griffin, and Joe King.
Okay.
Okay, Jim, could you tell us some characters you think of when you think of Main Street growing up in Gosport?
You know, I don't, seriously, I don't remember really any of them, because I was always working. When I was in town, I was going 5 yards and going straight home and trying to get enough energy together to pedal 7 miles to get home with.
7
But,
miles.
as far as the only time that I really enjoyed Gosport was Saturday night. Because you got a nickel, either buy an ice cream cone or a nickel bag of candy down to 5 and dime, and then sit on the curb and watch the Western show that night. And then you went home and started the week all over again.
Well, tell us, because this will be interesting to some younger people, or they can remember and relay it to another generation, what the lawnmowers were like that you were mowing when you mowed the yards, and what all you did that encompassed mowing someone's yard, and how much you got paid. Yeah.
Everybody, I'm going to tell you is the truth, but
That's what we want.
and I mowed Aaron Gray's, Raymond Gray's, and Aaron's, Riley Goss's, and Joe's grandmother's yard, and Hoadley's. Excuse me just a minute. Are you a relation to the Hoadleys that lived down 5th Street, there where the double post are?
Sylvester Hoadley's my dad.
He's your dad? All right, I mowed your yard.
Your
I
grandfather.
mean grandfather.
I mowed his yard
Yeah.
for 75 cents and with a real tight lawnmower and hand supplement. So that goes back in there too. But I mowed 5 yards when I was in town. When I got finished up, I had $1.75.
How long did it take you to
All
mow the
day.
5 yards?
All day.
When did you start? What time?
10 o'clock. I
Okay.
tried to be at Anna Gray's house at noon because I always got a pre-sandwich.
That's great. And her porch was great to sit on, and probably nice and cool too, the shade.
Alyssa, Kimberly.
Yes.
One of the characters that I can remember on Main Street was Boots Good. And Boots was an alcoholic, for those that didn't know, and he would get his gin, that's what he drank, and he'd have it, and he'd be putzing along, and he'd take a big swig and say, God gave me this. And he'd go on, and then he had his favorite place for throwing them out, and it was behind Ora Van Buskirk's house. And that alley there was just filled with old gin bottles. When they had her sales, they had to clean up. But he was definitely a character downtown.
Now, a character was Martha's sister, Mary, and she was one of my best friends and mentors. And she always talked about a character in Main Street, and I don't want to draw this out, but I think we should talk about her, Ann Granger. For those that don't know about Ann Granger, tell us about her.
Oh, Ann Granger, she scared kids. I mean, she really did. She always wore clothes that was way back. I mean,
Victorian type.
Victorian, yes. And she wore black a lot. she was a fairly tall woman with a stern face, and she'd come out behind that yard of hers, which is there where the town hall is. In that area, that's where her house was. And she had not a wire fence, but a nice fence, and she'd come out and the kids would just take off. And Wyatt Holsapple told me that when he was with his mother, he would get behind her or hold on her hand because he was so scared of her. But she did. She frightened people. And I don't think she was a mean person. But she had a habit. She had to go to buy her cigarettes. She smoked, which was rare. And she only bought them at one place, and that was at Sote Hancock's. That, I guess he was the only one who supplied the type that she smoked. But she'd make her trek down to Sote's to get her cigarettes.
Yeah. And where did you buy your cigarettes?
Briggs.
At Briggs, yeah. Did you tell them they were for Aunt Neoma or what?
Grandma Froby.
Grandma Froby, okay.
Hey, can I say
Yes.
something about Ed Granger? J. Lane Thompson and I sat in Amp Wampler's car in front of where the printing office was here in Gosport, and we were singing, we were agitating her, and we were singing Christian songs, and she come out of the house and says, "You boys sure need every bit of that that you're singing." She said, "You think that's bothering me? It's not bothering me one bit." I just sort of remember that about Ann Granger, and she's just like what Martha said she was like. At first, she was a strange lady.
Strange.
Was that the only time Jay Lane was in a church choir then?
No. When we were little, we all went to church every Sunday. We had to because our mother and grandmother made sure of it.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Dad, who do you think were the top three, now this does not include your mother or anyone like that, cooks in Gosport and why?
Yeah, what?
The top three cooks in
Cook?
Gosport and
We had a
why?
lot of good cooks in Gosport.
Think about your pitch-ins and kind of tell them about pitch-ins like we used to have and who you thought were the best cooks.
Well, there's a lot of the cooks I remember the most because the cooks we had at school that helped us feed us at noontime. Margaret DeWar was one of them. Gosh, I can't get. You know, when you get 90 years old, your memory's short.
Well, what's the food that you like that they cooked at school?
What I like the best? Whatever we had, I ate like biscuits. We'd have one time we'd have biscuits and gravy, and we had a lot of gravy and little steak items, things of that nature.
Yeah, everything that's against food now.
Gosport had a lot of good cooks. I mean, as you
Grandma
can
Froby
tell,
was a good cook.
yeah, they were good cooks, and really, you got to remember that they cooked a little different than you do now. And I think that's something that being brought out is back then the cooks, you had wood stoves. Maybe some of you older had wood stoves and you cooked off the wood stoves, and you didn't have electric stoves back then. And the type of food they fixed on that, I remember my grandmother, she made wonderful cobblers. And an old hot wood stove would be so hot, man, you just couldn't be born with eggs, but you got that easy.
Yeah, there was a poet in town, Mr. Mason and Mrs. Mason, and they had a wood stove, and she cooked off of that too. I don't know if I had any of her food, but she cooked off her wood stove too.
Laura Van Buster cooked off of a wood stove all the time, all her life.
I never
And
had
she
any
was a
of her
good. She
food.
was a good cook.
I just had ribbon candy from that bunch. They would just give me a lot of ribbon candy.
Ori always gave me oatmeal cookies. Cookies for her
For our
birthday.
birthdays and for
For
Christmas, yes.
birthdays and Christmas time, when she would give us make cookies for us. And give us cookies, boy, were they ever good.
Okay, Jim, tell us, what was the club you were in school?
I wasn't in any club.
He was mowing grass.
Well, when it was winter time and you couldn't grow
No.
grass, mow grass, what were you doing then?
No, I was always working. I was at home, livestock and feeding the chickens and the pigs and so forth. No,
And that was always before school, right? And after?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, people just don't realize. What was the club you were in? I'm hoping you're gonna tell the one that I think is the best.
FHA, not surely helped me, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, I thought GAA too, maybe.
What's
Was
that?
GAA around then?
GAA, oh yes,
Girls Athletic Association.
you know, it's in GAA. That was before they let girls do any sports. So we'd get together and just play what it was. They'd have what they called a play day.
But you could whip any boy in town, so.
And of course, like, Jim telling about he had to go home and work. I remember that, towards, I lived right across the street from the school, so it was very, I'd hear the bell ring, and I knew it was time to get up, get to school. I had 15 minutes for their time to get to school. But guys like Jim, I remember them, they'd sometimes beat the bus to school. I mean, they'd walk to school a lot of time, and they didn't want to ever miss, because that's where a lot of their only activity they had an opportunity to do anything was at school. And they would walk to school like the Hunsicker girls. They would walk quick kids. Now we got a school bus that picks them up.
I know, I said we gotta.
While we're talking about
We didn't have
school,
far to walk.
when after I got to freshman and so forth and all that, Howard Morgan and we always had a history class at their third period and speedball.
Right.
A lot of people think about speedball. Him and we'd take the third period and we'd come downtown to the restaurant. We'd just walk out of school, come down to the restaurant and have a cup of coffee and a piece of pie for 35 cents.
Oh, wow.
And we go back to school, and nobody said a word about it. And had Johnny Moore as a history class teacher, and I was working nights at Curly Evans's drying seed corn, and I wouldn't get home till 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning, and at 11 o'clock in the morning I was just wiped out, and I'd sleep through Johnny Moore's class, and he never said a word to me. He never did wake me up. And all that time, this is the truth, I never read that history book because I didn't have time to read the history book. And he was the type of teacher that would talk about the lesson one day and give you a test the next day. And whenever he gives us a test the next day, I'd always pass that dude, so I must have been listening to him while I was sleeping. And that's how I got through.
And he could be compassionate with you and what your situation was, where now you have to follow a lot of regimented rules.
Teachers don't.
One other thing about school too. When I was had study hall, I'd always walk out of study hall and go down and help Mr. Brighton and do something in janitor part, so forth, and
Scoop coal into the furnace.
they knew where I was. I'd repair doors and so forth, and they knew where I was, but nobody never said a word about it. And it was interesting.
But there were a lot of men that went in that boiler room.
Smoking.
Yeah.
You're smoking cigarettes. Martha, speaking of that, we're going to roll this up with you guys. Tell us about, there was two people I remember that used to walk past our house every day, and they walked for miles. One guy from down at Ramona, Dad, and I want you to talk about him, and one lady from here in Gosport, Martha, that was going out to check on her cows. Tell us.
Piney, we
Yeah.
talked about Piney, and Harrison Wallinson, is that who you're talking about from walking from Ramona?
So Dad will talk about him, and you talk about Piney.
Oh, Piney? Oh, my word, it was the one that started. Piney was an extremely intelligent woman who, people who didn't know her thought she was homeless and on the streets, and she didn't bathe quite frequently there toward the last, and was, you know, in her bib overalls, I mean, going, she was at the bank one time, and a teller or somebody was there from the state, and finally she left, and he said the people should get a collection and help that old woman. Well, she owned at that time about half the county. And she was really, pictures of her when she was young, she was a very beautiful woman.
Beautiful.
And as I said, very intelligent. She managed things well with, you know, and she was quite frugal. Well, she would pick up pop bottles and things like that and sell them. I mean, she wouldn't, you know, she'd see them around, she didn't care if she'd take that, she'd take it to Briggs and get 2 cents or, and that's probably why she had money. And she was thinking she was doing well when she got older, and so she decided to, with her property, to give it to her nephew, and, you know, and it would be hers until she passed away. Well, he died, and then his wife just wiped her out. And in fact, she died probably penniless.
But not catless,
Huh?
not catless, catless. Cats. She didn't, yeah, but she always had cats.
Oh,
Or she didn't
yes.
have any money,
Oh,
right?
yes, she had cats. And one time I took the agriculture census one year, and it was sent to all the farmers and people, and if they didn't fill it out, you had to go to the house. Well, of course, Piney didn't fill it out. I go in, she had it was like a big pole, a big log, stuck in the fireplace, and as it would burn down, she'd move it on in. And chickens, there was chickens roosting in the one part of the room and just fluttering around. And she just started talking, you know, and I asked her, you know, I had to ask all these questions, and I had to put down what she said, but it was like, the end was, how much do you think everything is worth? And she said, oh, 5,000, which, you know, was, her house was worth more than that. But I had to put that down because that's what she had said. But she was really a character.
The interior of her house, Mom and Pa Kettle could not
her
compare
house was
to.
something
Can I
else.
tell a little bit
Yes.
about Piney? Piney and I were really good friends. I was a Democrat, she was a Republican. And when I got done 2 terms on the school board, I decided I wanted to be in the House of Representatives. And you know, she switched her vote to Democrat, so to give me an extra vote. And T.P. Van Busker, if you remember him, he had a fit. So she changed her politics. But I can tell you this for a fact. I had a friend that wanted to buy a piece of property in town. And he went to Piney. And she said, how much do you need? He said, $10,000. Said, Maine, will you run upstairs and get the $10,000
Oh, gosh.
and bring it down to this one guy? And she gave him no note, no note. She did that with a lot of people.
Yes, she did.
People didn't know about what she did. If she liked you, well, you could just about do anything. And she had Maine go up and get that $10,000 and give it to that person. Didn't sign a note or anything. But she was that type of person. She may have didn't look good and that, but if you were the type of person that she liked, why she did it. And talking about her losing her property, I tried to talk her out of giving that property to her nephew. Oh, they had to have it. Well, he died, and like she said, that the money that she had left really went in sort of trust to that woman. And she didn't like it, so she come to me and asked me, said, what can I do? I said, well, I would get an attorney and see what you can do. And when she went to court, they said, tough luck, you gave that away, and you'll just have to live with what you got. And she did that the rest of her life. And now that woman didn't treat her really bad. She didn't treat her bad. I think he gave her a little just spice and enough to live on, and that was it. But she was a special person.
Anybody know how she got the name?
You got to know her, and that she was like that. Yes, sir?
Do you know how she got the name Piney? Does
I
anybody?
don't know, her real name was
Pauline.
Pauline, yeah, her real name was
Yeah.
Pauline.
Yeah.
She didn't have any boyfriend, but she had one, and he may have given her that name. Is a railroader, but I don't know what his name was. But she never. Her sister's Mamie.
Can I say something? I guess when Maine had her funeral, she was really dressed up. Of course, I missed all that. But anyway, she had fallen in the house. And at that time, Wyatt was delivering food to the senior citizens. So he went down there and he could see her on the floor. So he went over and got Narth Newby, and they went in and got her and set her up. And Wyatt had at that time, Florence Foster was over the nutrition thing. And so she came over and told me. So I had somebody watch Kelby because he was real low. I went on down, and Wyatt was feeding her, and she, like a banana, and it just took a long time for her to eat. She just had tripped over the telephone wire, and then she was all mixed up. She was just really all mixed up. But anyway, so we got a little bit of money. We got $40 for doing that. Out of her, the niece had given it to us. So I remember her coming down shortly after somebody got a hold of her or something. But anyway.
Piney was in the bank when it was robbed.
Yes.
And he told everybody to get on the floor. Well, Piney probably, she was well in her 80s then, maybe, I have no idea. And she just finally told him, she said, I can't. If I get down, I can't get up. He let her alone. And everybody else had to be on the floor, but Piney stood while he robbed the bank.
Daddy always talked about her log, that she would let it burn and then she'd push it in the fireplace some more. And
Yes, yeah.
He would always talk about it.
Yeah, she did that.
Okay, well, we've learned about some characters, except tell us about Mr. Robinson real fast, and I'm gonna tell you something that you
Well,
told me about him.
nothing in particular, he just comes down
Every day.
every day. Now,
How many miles?
I'll tell you a story with him and me personally, I don't want to take up all the
Yeah.
time, that I did when I was a kid. John Sloan, I don't know if you remember him, had a filling station up where Jerry Armstrong lived.
Yes.
And that used to be Highway 67 that went to Spencer. You had to go through Romona before they built the 67 we have out here. And I used to go to that filling station every day, and they would pinch me on the cheek or rub me on the head and call me names, take names, because they knew I'd get mad, and I got mad at it. Well, one day I decided that was enough, and I knew my dad had a rifle in his closet. And I went upstairs in my house, I had a two-story house, and grabbed that rifle and stood over there where Bess Pitts lived in, Clovis Pitts, with the rifle, and I raised it and shot over the top of the filling station. And thank God, when I did, it kicked. It kicked, because I was pretty young. I was only about 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, my gosh.
I wasn't very old, and that rifle kicked, and they begged me with candy and everything, come on over, we'll give you candy and stuff to eat, stuff like that. And I just stood there, and Mr. Roberts, the one he talked about, came by and talked me out of it while one of them sneaked behind and got the rifle away from me. And I don't want to tell you the other part of the story of my parents, because I got it good. But I'll say one thing about it. From that day on, I'd go to that filling station, and they treated me like a king, which was my name. I mean, I could have candy bars and anything I wanted to eat.
And we'll talk about this later with another group, but another person that would venture into Gosport with a lot of physical ability was Roy Lake. We'll talk about him in a minute too. So thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it.
I got one story since David Hoadley's here.
Yes.
I've got to tell a story on his dad.
Okay.
His dad. My grandmother lived, what was this street number, up this main street, they're right by this school. And Artie Hoadley graduated with my mother. And so
Uncle Wes.
he got my Uncle Wes, and he and Wes were really good friends. And they would tease Ned Smith. Ned just used to be superintendent of schools, Owen County. And because Ned he was pretty tough when he was a kid. He was always pulling stuff on people. Anyway, they got tired of him teasing Ned, so he got a hold of the hose. They come out of the house all dressed up, had good dates, had ties on and everything, and Ned got the water hose and sprayed Artie, and my Uncle Wes had sprayed them, and they had to get my grandmother to go out and get the hose away from them. I wanted to tell that story because David would appreciate it knowing about what his father did.
That could have started a tornado in Gosport for sure. Yeah, well, thank you all for reminiscing with us. We really appreciate it. We're going to be ready for our next group now. He told me, now if I'm wrong about this, Dad, correct me, but you told me that Mr. Robinson drank a cup of hot water every day, right? You don't need Miralax if you drink a cup of hot water every day. He told me that was one of the things that kept him going, well, he would keep going, right? Walking and in good shape, because he walked by our house every day. Martha, you gonna say something else or just wave it? She's so neat. I know it.
Could I say
Yes.
something? Could I say something? I want people to know there is people here at me, was in Gosport that had a heart. Because when I was a junior in high school, it's a shame that some young people are not here and hear what I have to say, because it's gonna light up a lot of you people's eyes. Because when I tell you this, I've always wanted to tell this about the Gosport High School. When I was a junior in high school, the principal called me in the office one morning and told me, he said, "Jim," he said, "I got a deal for you." I said, "Yeah, I'll bet you got a deal for me." Yeah, you know how that goes. But anyway, he set me down beside his desk and he said, "You have earned a scholarship to go to Purdue University to be an agriculture teacher." When I was in high school, I was in ag. We had a fantastic team. But anyway, he told me it won't cost you a dime to go. And I think I was about 16 years old. And 16 years old, you got all the answers. But anyway, what this boils down to, at the end, I mechanicked for 42 years, eating brake dust and grease and so forth, and brake fluid in my face and what have you. And if I'd took time and talked to somebody older than I was and got some ideas of what I could, with ahead of me, it would have helped me a whole bunch, because and no telling what kind of a life I'd have had instead of mechanic all my life, working day and night, trying to make a living. And, but it's a shame that these kids today don't take the time, they can't put their phone down. They can't put their phone down, and they cannot get the advice and the things that they need to know out of that phone. They need to talk to people like you sitting right up there that's been there and done that. And you can't, somebody needs to set their foot down and tell them where all the advantages are that they need to know to get through life. And it'd been amazing if I had done that and what my life might have been.
But Jim, you were amazing. Your vocation that you have, that's what we want kids to have now, to learn. And you don't realize how many people you've helped, because transportation was everything, whether it was in agriculture or just in personal transportation or in work. You made it go. You kept it going, and it was very important, your job.
I know, but look at all the grease and stuff that I ate.
That's why you don't have any wrinkles.
You know,
Don't have any wrinkles? That was.
Joel had a question.
You just mentioned Charlie Mason, and,
Todd.
Yes.
Todd.
Well, he was Charles Mason.
Charles Mason.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Marguerite.
Not Manson Mason.
Well, he would write poems,
Yes.
and he wrote a poem about my parents, Jim and Rena Smith. And what he wrote in that poem was, he was her last hope, and she was his last chance. And I have that poem somewhere, but I don't know where.
That inspires you, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And I was gonna say, no, she wasn't growing up in Gosport, but I remember my mom showing me where June Burns lived out at Patricksburg, and her walking all the way to school and back. It was incredible. It was incredible. Okay, anybody else have a question or wanna make a comment?
Well, the house I used to live in on 4th Street, Julia Burns was born in that house.
The one you lived in with your grandmother?
No.
The one you lived in,
Well, when
yeah,
on 4th Street.
yeah, okay.
Julia Burns was born in that house. And back when they were putting in 67, they had boarders. There was 2 rooms upstairs, and guys boarded up, while they were putting in 67. These are things we'd been told about different things, So it was interesting.
That's pretty neat.
you know, a week ago or so, I came up to town to bring one of my maps here at the museum, and I stopped by the town office and gave them one of my maps. And if you'll notice the maps, the way I saw it, it starts out on 1st Street. That's the way I remember it. And it winds up at 9th Street, the way I lined it out. But they told me up at the town office that that's not right. 1st Street starts on the east end of town and goes to west end. Does it really? Okay. But anyway, in other words, the streets are backwards on your map. If that's the case, then, but that's the way I always remembered it.
Very good.
Who are your favorite teachers? All 3 of you.
Name a favorite teacher.
Favorite teacher?
What did he say?
Who was your favorite teacher? Just name who it was.
Oh, well, I've got several. I gotta go by grades.
Go ahead.
Elementary school, 5th and 6th grade was Ellis Hall. Junior high was Bob Alexander. He taught English. High school was Marcia Rice, and she taught English and French. And then most of all was my mother, who was a teacher. She was my overall favorite.
Absolutely. And tell me about where she used to teach in a 1-room or 2-room school.
What did she want?
Out of Harrison Township. Tell me about that.
Oh, she taught she taught at Low Posse, and had to fire up the stove and carry the water in and all of that,
Lori
I
was
would go
well.
out there and I thought it was wonderful. She had, I think they had up to 6 grades and then they dropped it down to 4. But I thought that was just wonderful.
Jim, what do you?
Oh, I can name a lot of them. I'll go to my 4th grade when I first came to Gosport. Mac May was the teacher, and this is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. when I came to Gosport High School, it took me, I stuttered so bad, it took me 5 minutes to say I. Seriously. Really. And Mac May convinced the kids to help me, and as long as when I started to talk, if they'd stop me, then I could go ahead and finish my sentence. And Mac May was the person that brought me out of whatever my problem was with having the kids to help me. And that's as far as I go. There's a lot of them, you know, but I'll go with Mac May because that is when you stutter, but it's tough. But thank God I got through it and had somebody, a class, 4th grade class, and a teacher to help me.
Did anybody ever make a teacher cry?
Did
I can't hear.
anybody ever make a teacher cry?
Did you ever make a teacher cry?
Either of you.
No, I made Mrs. Minnick, and I feel so terrible about that now,
Didn't
but
Joe?
when I was in school, I did not want to take home economics. Martha Stewart, I am not. So I wasn't the only one, but we were not very nice to her. And when I started teaching, and I saw her, I was home when she was in Spencer, and I apologized to her greatly. But I would not ever do that. I didn't make anybody cry, but I made her miserable, I'm sure.
Who was your favorite teacher, Dad?
John Moore,
Yeah.
J.W. Moore. And I'll tell you a little story that sort of goes along with that. When I started college over at IU, Mr. Moore was getting ready to get in his car, and he saw me coming, and he said, "Joe, see you enrolled at IU." He said, what are you going to major in?" I said, "John, I want to be a basketball coach like you." And man, he let me have it. He said, "You're not going to be any basketball coach. You know how tough a job that is? You never know 1 week to the next whether you're going to be a coach or not. They're going to fire you." And he said, you either have all the parents getting mad at you and everything. He said, "You need to go with your dad at the plant, because Gosport's going to need you one of these days to keep this thing going, manufacturing company." And I'll never forget that as long as I live.
And it was just a couple of years later, and they did need him.
Yeah.
Because your dad wasn't there. How old were you, 22? When you started at the plant, at the helm of the plant?
No, I was only about in the 5th grade in school when I started working there. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I mean, I did a lot of things that I wasn't allowed to. So that's when it really started, but it really was after I got out of high school when I really did a lot of work. I'd go to IU and then work at the plant too.
And then your dad died, and then you were, and how old were you then?
I don't,
22, 23?
yeah, probably.
Yeah. That was a big
57.
responsibility.
57, yeah.
Okay, we're ready for our next group. Thank you guys so much.
80th anniversary of Gosport Manufacturing. We do have a display over here about the plant. And also, we've acquired a few things, and you know that, but we got this year from Jeanette Burns Lowe. She gave us Sam Sanders and Ura Sanders funeral books. And if you ever want to look in here and look at autographs of people, everyone in here has been touched in this book. There are family names. I got to see my grandfather, Mortimer Michael, or Mortimer King, write his name in here. I'd never seen his signature before. But every person that's ever been in Gosport, I think, came to these funerals, and they're just beautiful. So they're back here to look at. And a couple other things, if you're not going to stay, we hope you stay. There's 2 more panels. We are working on signatures, and that's why she gave them to us. We wanted to keep signatures through the years. And so there's a back here at the table, you can sign your name on a paper, and then we're going to keep it forever back here. You can write anything you want. I lived in Gosport so-and-so, or I was a Hubsick, or I was whatever. And we want to keep those so that people in the future can look back and go, "Oh, who was that? And what a great signature," or whatever. So we want to encourage you to do those things too before you get up. Our next group is going to be the 50s and the 60s, so don't go away. We'll be right back.
And,
That's
write
a
your
fun way to
names
do
and
it.
your,
About
and whatever
decades,
you would
that's a good
like to
idea.
add to that, like Miss Veda or Mrs. Lowe or Mrs. Whitaker wants you to with your cursive.